that means you can speak.
Is it a PowerPoint or is it just a? Yeah, so just copy it on there, and then I'll copy it.
We're not expecting it.
Yeah, yeah, you never know. Yeah. Then it'll be on the desktop on this computer.
just wondered how it indicated if I did choose to do that. Yes, I am done. Thank you. Oh, yeah.
All right, I will bring February 1st, 2022 Board of Education meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Kate Thomas.
Here.
Gabe Doney.
Here.
Jim Hansen. Present. Amy Plisky is absent with notice. Clay Colomb.
Here.
Deb Baker. Here. And Troy Carr is absent with notice.
Okay, thank you. We have Pastor David Greff from Harvest Time Free Will Baptist Church here tonight for the invocation. Please.
Let's pray together. Holy Father, we pray to you in the name of your Son, Jesus, the Christ, the Savior of the world. And we ask for you to be present with us at tonight's meeting, that we might conduct ourselves in the reverent fear of God. We pray that you would grant wisdom to your servants, each man and woman on the council, O God, that they might lead our schools in truth and lead our schools in righteousness, that you would find pleasure in Rapid City and show us your favor. And I pray that you would richly bless all of the council members, God, and their families for their service to our city and for our little ones. And we pray most of all for those children, the students of Rapid City, Lord God, that they would have pure hearts and sharp minds and strong bodies. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen.
Thank you very much. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, I am going to need an approval of the agenda, but I do want to vote first on changing the minutes for persons wishing to address the board to 4 minutes, since the 8 that we have will put us over the half hour. So
moved. Second.
Jim and Gabe, all those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Just quickly, do we have Amber Tilburg here tonight? Okay. First person is, oh yeah, we do. First and second on the agenda, approval.
Motion.
Get that? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right. First person is Iris Ann.
Hi, my name is Iris, and I go to Rapid City High School. I would just like to bring up a situation at my school. So I am a transgender student, and I have to use the bathroom in the office, which is 3 to 4 flights of stairs every day, which takes away time from my education and learning. And in this, sorry, this is kind of nervous for me. Under the policy of the National Center of Transgender Equality, the policy letter explains how schools are required to treat transgender students under the Title IX, the federal law prohibiting sex discrimination in education. It lays out the principles that the Department of Education will follow when it enforces Title IX. It just kind of hurts when I have to walk down a lot of stairs, especially because I have a high blood pressure problem, and I don't think that's very, equal for, everyone, because, because it's discriminatory. And under this policy, the schools are required to treat transgender students according to their gender identity, including making sure that transgender students have access to restrooms and locker rooms that match their gender identity. That's all I wanted to proceed to you guys today, because I did call the school board about a month and a half ago, and I was told that I would get a call back or an email, and I never did. So I just wanted to bring this issue to your guys' attention, so hopefully we could come to an agreement or solve the problem. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, Jan Mangelson.
Hello and good evening. I think it is important that HB 1216 is brought up this evening. The bill brought forth by Sioux Falls legislators is this is a year affected by the pandemic. Many teachers and educators are exhausted. Looking through the terminations, teachers have broken their contracts this year, denoted by a resign breach. Teachers rarely will leave students and their troubles. I don't know what it is. There's no doubt that the schools will have staffing issues as it is next year. This bill will only further existing issues. Along with decimating morale, the bill is poorly written. It not only removes collective bargaining, but has two other issues as far as dismissal. HB 1216 does nothing for education in Rapid City. It is wise to speak against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Carolyn Hofler.
You have to give me a moment. I've never spoken before in front of anyone since high school. So
all right.
Kudos to the high school student. In the library, my kid and others were shown a picture of a Black Lives Matter protest and then a cover of the book. And the goal was to have the students look for this book. And it's called A Good Kind of Trouble. And I read the book, and it's full of cop bashing, critical race theory, justification for violence, political activism, and praising cultural Marxism. The book has a 12-year-old participating in protests, and social justice is not something I want shoved on my child, especially when it contradicts my values. But more importantly, the librarian thinks that's important because she is promoting 2 other anti-cop books on Google Classroom that my daughter has access to, and every student that she has access to. This is what she says about Anger as a Gift. Quote, "This novel is great for fans of The Hate U Give. I read it over break. These topics included are so important for teens in our country today. Hits on racism, school equality, police discrimination, and so much more. If you're up for a book that pushes you to do better and be more, Anger is a Gift, you can check that out." Be better at what? Seeing everyone through the prism of race? And do what? What does she want my 11-year-old daughter to do exactly? Participate in protests? No. I don't teach my kids that. I don't use my children as tools to push social activism on. The same librarian has an ebook recommendation that kids can download to their laptops without parental consent. Titles like Coping with Gender Dysphoria, Transgender Teens Speak Out, Racial Profiling, Everyday Inequality. I teach my children the truth, and this librarian does not get to use her power of influence to undermine my values to my children. She does not get to force her opinion onto my kid while using books that align with her political views. If you type in police officers in the Destiny catalog, the thing that they use to find books, full of anti-cop books. In one particular book, it's called Not My Idea, a book about whiteness. It goes after cops, and it even has children, white people, signing a contract with the devil. In this author's Instagram bio, it says, I teach CRT to little kids. That book is in the school system. And it's because of rhetoric from these books and those who echo those sentiments. Officers have been demonized, violently attacked, and murdered. Last week, 6 officers were shot in less than 48 hours, and their sacrifices matter. I do not want my kids being taught to tear down our nation's heroes. Cops are not the enemy. They are the one that hold the line between chaos and civility. And it is time that we start humanizing the badge and stop lying about them. And I'm going to leave you with this. How are controversial topics like social justice going to help my daughter in science, math, and reading, subjects that she struggles in? It won't. Schools have a job to provide the best education possible, and this isn't it. So what are you going to do about these materials in the schools? And when am I going to hear from you? Thank you.
Thank you. Joshua Heffler?
Good evening.
So I appreciate the opportunity to come here and talk. I just want to say right from the start, I'm frustrated and I'm angry. Okay. I'll start by asking, who does the school faculty at my child's middle school think they are? What gives them the right to promote social justice topics and far left-wing literature? I moved my family from California in hopes of escaping this, only to find it deeply rooted here. Since when is it appropriate for a librarian to expose children and young adults to books promoting white hate? How is it okay for a librarian to try and turn my own child against me? How is it acceptable for a principal to run block and cover for such a faculty member? There's people here, the people that aren't here, that have infected our school system with dangerous individuals who are more complicit in letting children become indoctrinated in far left, Marxist, anti-white, anti-police, and anti-American doctrine. How is recommending books that tell African American children that they're victims, born victims, and will always be victims as long as there's white people around? These teachers and staff members are training and recruiting the next generation of activists in plain view, and no one realizes it. The city hasn't been hit by the Antifa BLM chaos that others have, but they're here, and they are waiting for their numbers to grow before they make their move. I spent my entire adult life fighting and preparing for war. I left the military and the liberal dystopian wasteland that is called California to ensure my children grow up with the love of God and country. Now these people in positions of power and influence want to turn my children against me. They want them to hate themselves for being white, for being born. How is it okay for these people to let tell my little girl that she needs to hate herself and that she needs to take the blame for something that she's not responsible for? Why does she need to feel that it's not the content of a person's character that matters, but what skin color they are? The school is promoting a self-destructive idea that is not healthy for a young woman's self-esteem, self-worth, and development. All these teachers and administrators are showing is they only care about their toxic message and not the children they've been entrusted to educate. Our kids are cannon fodder to them, a means to an end, and I won't stand for it. I don't know what's going to happen after today. I know my daughter will likely become a target, and a target to these people, and I'm more than ready to move her from the school system altogether, because right now I don't have faith in the system or the people. I hope you have the courage to make the right decision, and I pray justice is done, not just for my daughter's sake, but for every kid in this city. Please, don't be afraid to be called a racist in this fight. In my line of work, I've been called a racist nearly every single day, to the point where the word no longer holds any meaning. We may be the first ones to speak up, but we won't be the last. Words getting around, and parents are outraged. This may just be the opening volley in the fight to come, but it's a fight that needs to happen and soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, Ed Manzano.
Good evening, School Board. Over the last 2 to 3 years in the states of Texas, Indiana, South Carolina, Tennessee, Florida, and other states, they've passed laws specifically stating parents' rights in educating their children. So far, South Dakota has not passed any laws, but I think the time is right for our school board to consider a Parent-Students Bill of Rights policy. Such a policy can protect the rights of parents to be the unquestioned primary decision makers for their kids in school. It can also guard the students by ensuring they are educated in reading, writing, and arithmetic, not indoctrinated in radical ideologies. And it can also guard the teachers by clearly defining their roles as educators, not guardians, not activists, not caretakers, not healthcare nurses, but educators. I have some points that I think that this policy might want to address. Point 1, parents are in charge of their kids' education, period. I have an example from Denver, Centennial Elementary School in Colorado is teaching children kindergarten, first and second grade to disrupt the nuclear family and support Black Lives Matter movement. And if you read some of the principles on the back, they're anti-American, anti-God. Point 2, parents have the right to see all of the school's curriculum, lessons, materials, and textbooks used in school. Now, this is already a Rapid City District code, which most parents don't know about. It's IF-P, which says the school district shall provide all lessons, all materials, if the parents ask for it. Point 3, parents expect school employees to comply with all South Dakota laws regarding the Pledge of Allegiance, patriotism, love of the flag, love of our country, and respect for our government. And there are numerous South Dakota codified laws that address that. Point 4, parents expect the values they teach their children will be respected and upheld by teachers and administrators. In Salinas, California, on December 20th, more than 150 parents packed a Salinas, California school board meeting to voice their frustrations over teachers who were caught on leaked audio discussing their plans to recruit middle school girls into a gay-straight alliance by disguising the name of the club and hiding the actions from their parents. Point 5, lessons should be taught impartially to all students with open-mindedness and no control of student judgment on any issue. Article from Gilbert, Arizona, suspended a high school student named Logan Jones for wearing a Make America Great Again hat. He was suspended from school. Point 6, parents and their family doctors will make all health decisions for their children. Parental consent should be required for any and all mental health issues. LA school vaccinates kids without parental consent. So these points and many others should be part of a Rapid City Parents' Bill of Rights. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ed. I'll wait 1 second, but the next speaker is Florence Thompson. Let's see if we can get them to fix that mic.
Sorry, I didn't mean to blow it up.
Oh, it's okay.
Thanks a lot, Ed.
Yeah, we'll send you the bill.
Yeah. My name is Florence Thompson. I'm president of South Dakota Parents Involved in Education, and I'm also a retired school psychologist with over 40 years experience in the schools as a psychologist. I was dismayed, and as I'm sure many people were, to read the headline in the Rapid City Journal about the coach who used to be employed here and who had his teaching license pulled because of allegations of misconduct, sexual misconduct. It seems to me, just from reading what I know of the case, that needs to be investigated by this board to see if it was handled properly and if there need to be changes made in the reporting system. Because it appears that instead of actually, in my experience, when you have any indication of child abuse or any suspicion of child abuse, under law, you are obliged to report that to the authorities, either the police or to social services, child protective services. You cannot sit on that information. It is against the law for that information not to be relayed to those agencies. And it is also not in the role of the school or any other person to investigate and make judgment in those cases. They're simply supposed to be turned over to the police and to the social services to be investigated. And they really don't want everybody mucking around in the case. I can understand that. And also, people's rights have to be protected. These are the professionals who, by law, are supposed to handle these cases. When you get a report that is possible child abuse, you don't sit on it. You report it, you pass it along, and let them determine whether it's child abuse or not. So I think this board, which it wasn't your case, so I think you can be objective and go back and see if there need to be changes in the system, in instruction to the principals, to the counselors, whoever, to the teachers, so that everyone understands what the legalities are here. And you might have Child Protective Services come in and do an in-service so that people understand what the proper reporting procedures are. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Sarah Gross.
Gosh, hello board, and let me get going here. My mom and I have been talking a lot about 1216. That's the House bill that is really an attack on the negotiations process and on teachers. And so we talked a lot about it, and one of the lines in it in particular sticks out. If you haven't read it, I implore you to do so and to write your legislator and say, this is not a good bill. The way it is written, it's not good. And the things inside of it are not good. As Jan said, we have teachers that are leaving the profession right now, and this will exacerbate that. Now, I was going to say a little bit more on that and how close we are to neighboring states and how we're 50th. I think Mississippi is the only state that pays their teachers less. Not to say that teachers work for the money, because I don't think we do, but there are some, an hour and a half away. You're in Wyoming, and heck, you're making $10,000 more a year. What a drive. But I actually feel like I should veer topics because I continue to get more involved and show up here more and more, and it's because I am that librarian. I am a school librarian. I am who is in the library looking at books, and I can say that we have no agenda, that we do not want to have kids think a certain way. We want kids to think. And we have standards that we draw from. In my library, I have a bunch of technology, and so I've been 3D printing up a storm. My kids are making little name tags, and I read a book a day. And so I hope that you can put a face with this, because there are teachers across this district that are in year 3 of the pandemic, and I've heard from numerous people that I'm not coming back. Like, I can't make my life work with this. I'm out of sick days. I'm working in a crummy building. It's supposed to be built, and it's supposed to be built, and it's supposed to be built. Or we really have to stop attacking our teachers, because we're gonna have some ramifications over the next years. We have to focus on the real issues that are right here. And when we have issues where we have a disagreement in what's taught, that does go through the proper chain of command, because there is one. They need to bring it to the principal. They can bring it to you, as far as I understand. Those are a couple of the things that caught my attention. We have amazing people, and I think there are people like me who show up every day and really want to get to know kids and want those kids to be healthy and happy. The story I think I have time for was from this morning as I walked into my building. I work in a new building, so I'm still meeting everybody, and this gal, she's experienced but new special education teacher to this building, and she had 3 grocery bags along with her other bags, and I was like, Cheerios? Like boxes of Cheerios, what you gonna do? And she had gotten a new student the day before, and she said he was famished, and so she, with her own money, she had fruit snacks and Cheerios and I don't know what else, but she's never gonna be reimbursed from that. We don't have a system for that. She had gone to the store specifically for that student. Now, to keep that person here in Rapid City taking care of children is very important, and I think that you have a lot of sway with your local legislators, and I hope that you will read 1216, recognize that it will cause teachers to leave, and that you will talk to those legislators about that.
Thank you. That was perfect time. Tanchi Weaver.
Well, I hope this doesn't break it. Good evening, Board. Yes, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things that are happening in the State House as well. The other day I was listening during the Senate Judiciary Committee, and Senate Bill 81 came up. I would encourage everyone to listen to that testimony. That's even more important than reading the bill. There are a lot of questions, and I have to say that some of the questions that Florence brought up occurred to me too. There were some issues I had with the timeline. I had questions about, okay, who reported this? It sounded to me like it was the parents that reported it and not the school. I have a lot of questions about what the process is. It was alluded to in the testimony of Sinova Nicolaisen, who used to be the HR director here. And some of the committee did not ask too many questions. It was pretty much clear that the bill was going to pass, and it has passed. But one of the things that occurred to me was, when was the board informed, and was the board informed? Because this is a very serious thing. I noticed that in the bills that have lately been introduced, grooming being made a crime is one of them. So we can follow that progress as well. That is something that I think that we've heard some things about here. There's, I'm not here to bash teachers. That's not my goal. But I am here to say that there are things happening in the schools that are your business, and I'm wondering if you are being informed about them. The situation with the coach seems to me could have been handled better. I'm not going to point any fingers right now, but it seems to me that there were some things that were maybe done in a slow fashion that should have been stepped up, or that maybe some things just weren't done. And we've heard from parents tonight who feel their children are not being given a good education, or their children are being manipulated. I must say that I'm also a California refugee. So, so I can identify with that. We too moved back to this area from California to get away from some of the things that were going on there. And to see that creeping into our school system, we've got to put a stop to it, and we can't be afraid to talk about these things. I'm not, and I hope you're not either. Thank you.
Thank you. Tanchi, what was that bill number again?
Senate Bill 81.
Okay.
Well, and if you go to sdlegislature.gov,
okay,
and then it'll have the bills there. You can click on it says 2022 bills.
Okay.
And then on that bill where you see the Thunderbird icon,
right,
in the committee, that's where you listen to it. And if anybody needs me to show them how, I'll be happy to help.
Thank you. Okay, that was the last speaker.
Madam President,
Yes, go ahead.
could I request a moment of personal note?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Ms. Heffler, Joshua, thank you for coming tonight and having the courage to speak out on this in regards to what you have been told. I also have had numerous phone calls over this same situation this last week, and I too feel that it is unacceptable and goes against everything that pretty much most of us probably in this room believe in. So this will be looked into, and I just wanted to say thank you for coming and bringing this to our attention and having the courage to do it. So I applaud you for doing that.
Okay, moving on to the sharing the success National School Counseling Week Proclamation, February 7th to 11th. Is that you, Coy? Or Carol? Sorry. Did I just put you on the spot? Sorry, JJ Carroll, please.
Okay, it's a proclamation for the National School Counseling Week. Whereas school counselors are employed in public and private schools to help students reach their full potential, and whereas school counselors are actively committed to helping students explore their abilities, strengths, interests, and talents as these traits relate to career awareness and development. And whereas school counselors help parents focus on ways to further their educational, personal growth of their children, and whereas school counselors work with teachers and other educators to help students explore their potential and set realistic goals for themselves, and whereas school counselors seek to identify and utilize community resources that can enhance and complement comprehensive school counseling programs and help students become productive members of society, and whereas comprehensive developmental school counseling programs are considered an integral part of the educational process that enables all students to achieve success in schools. Therefore, I, Dr. Lori Simon, do hereby proclaim February 7th through the 11th, 2022 as National School Counseling Week.
Thank you. Obviously, you are not Dr. Simon. He was talking for Dr. Simon. Okay, one of my favorite parts, student representative reports, and we'll start with Abby Rutan.
Thank you. Rapid City High School is excited to announce the first semester Rushmore Rotary Club Students of Distinction. The Rushmore Rotary Club has been a longtime supporter of Rapid City High School. Each semester, they recognize a distinct learner from each grade level. This semester, there were over 50 nominations of learners from our CHS staff. The first semester Rushmore Rotary Club Students of Distinction are 9th grader Andre G., 10th grader Leve T., 11th grader Ben C., and 12th grader Summer H. On behalf of the entire student body at Rapid City High School, we want to publicly congratulate these learners for being respectful, present, and courageous learners. With the second semester well underway, seniors are already preparing for graduation. Cap and gown orders are being placed, and staff have been double-checking transcripts to keep all learners on track for graduation. In fact, as a senior myself, I am told there are only 55 school days left on the calendar. While the seniors are looking to their future, Rapid City High School is also planning theirs. Next year, Rapid City High School will move from semester schedule to a quarter schedule. This schedule will allow learners to focus on 4 courses at a time for 9 weeks each. With the support of the senior leadership team, our CHS staff is currently working out the finer details of the schedule. As these are finalized, we'll be sure to share our progress with the board. In closing, I'll remind you of our school-wide expectations at Rapid City High. Be respectful, be present, and be courageous.
Thank you very much. Hayden Bentz from Stevens High School.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, my name is Hayden Bentz, and I'm the student representative to the Board of Education from Stevens High School. I would like to begin tonight by highlighting the many activities currently underway at Stevens. Firstly, I would like to wish the Stevens Theater Department good luck as they compete in the High School Activities Association one-act competition. Yesterday and this evening, they are debuting Jabberwock Asylum, which takes place following the events of Alice in Wonderland. Alice is now in a mental institution where she contemplates if her time in Wonderland truly did happen or if it was all a dream. They will perform the competition on Saturday at Central High School. Also in the field of the arts, a big congratulations to all of the band members who were selected to be a part of the 2022 South Dakota All-State Band. I do not have specific numbers and or names at this time, but nevertheless, their hard work, dedication, and commitment have paid off. In athletics, Stevens swept the Cobblers this past weekend in basketball, with both the boys and girls beating our crosstown rivals. It also marked the annual fundraiser for whiteout cancer, in which money raised goes towards a local family battling the terrible disease. Simeon Birnbaum was named the South Dakota Gatorade Player of the Year for boys cross country, the first athlete from Stevens ever to do so. Stevens would like to wish Simeon a huge congratulations on the amazing accomplishment. Next Wednesday, February 9th, Stevens will be running an assembly schedule to allow for a video regarding suicide prevention to be shown. The purposes of the video are to recognize the warning signs of suicide, understand what to do if a peer is thinking of suicide, identify trusted adults, and identify crisis options, including the crisis phone number, text line, and hospital. Suicide is an extremely important topic to understand, but most importantly, know how to prevent. Lastly, 8th grade information night will occur at Stevens later this month. It will overview the course selection process, graduation requirements, and a department showcase featuring the amazing learning that is occurring at Stevens High School. We look forward to welcoming the next generation of Raiders. Thank you for listening, and go Raiders.
Thank you, Hayden. And tonight we have and welcome Colton Porter from Central High School. It's nice to have you. Go ahead.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Colton Porter, and this will be my first meeting as the student representative on the school board. To start off my report, for the first time in 65 years, Central High School has the honor of hosting the South Dakota State 1X over the 3rd, 4th, and 5th of February. Central High School will see 45 schools and almost 1,200 students, directors, and educators. Awards are given in all 3 classes of AA, Single A, and B class. Awards are given for acting, ensemble, and show, including technical design awards for a chosen play in the technical categories of marketing, costume, and scenic design. This is a huge testament to the humongous support of Central's Performing Arts Department across South Dakota, created by directors Justin Speck and Joey Lohr, as well as past and present CHS cast members. Moving on past theater, Central has 2 candidates for the U.S. Presidential Scholar Program. Those 2 students are Grace Belcher and Caden Kelderman. Congratulations to them. Furthermore, Central High School closed out the competition in the Black Hill Symphony Young Artist Competition. Kaylee Tapper took 3rd place, Caleb Van Vliet took 2nd place, and Abby Stevens took 1st place, all in the junior division. Furthermore, Central as well as Stevens and Rapid City High School concluded their all-state band auditions. We have 4 students, including myself, going to all-state band, and so congratulations are in order for all students going. Furthermore, next week between the 7th and 11th, Central will be recognizing National School Counseling Week, and next week, Thursday, there will be a mandatory meeting for seniors at 10:45 to discuss NCRC testing and graduation. The next ACT will be on February 12th, and Central is hosting a parent-teacher conference night on the 17th. And lastly, this weekend we will be hosting Brandon Valley and Sioux Falls O'Gorman High School at home. Thank you.
Thank you. Great report, all of you. Okay, moving on to 8, conflict of interest. Nobody has sent any conflicts of interest in. So moving on to 9, I would ask, does anybody want anything pulled from the consent?
Madam President?
Yes.
I would like to pull 9A.
Okay. Anyone else?
I would like to pull J and K.
All right. I would pull myself B for discussion. So A, B, J, K, and I'm pulling W as well. All right, so I'm going to need a first and a second for C through I, L through V, X, and Y. Gabe
Second.
and Deb, okay? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, moving on to A. I need a first and second for approval.
Motion approved.
Gabe? Second. And Deb seconds. All right, go ahead, Gabe, discussion.
Thank you, Madam President. I pulled this one just, actually was looking at this, and not necessarily discussion on the guidebook, but I think what I'm about to say will probably go along with this in regards to either maybe tabling it or approving it now and possibly changing it later. But I guess I was approached by the 24 credit versus 22 credit that is, how do you say it, not mandated by the state, but 22 credit.
22 credits to graduate, yeah.
To graduate high school. So here at Rapid City, we do 24. And I guess I am going to ask the policy committee to take a look at this, the 24 versus 22, in regards to going and looking back to maybe going back to 22 graduates to graduate. And I believe we can kind of look at that in regards to the electives. Right now there's 4.5, and I think we could possibly push that down to 2.5 in regards to what the state requires. And I'm requesting the policy committee take a look at that and bring that forward to maybe, depending on when your meeting is, either the next board meeting or no later than the first meeting in March. Thank you.
I have a question, Mr. Carroll. Would voting on this tonight, if we were to vote to take it from 24 to 22 later on in a month or so, would that affect this guidebook very much, or would you have much to change in it? Oh, no, Kumar, can you,
Okay.
is it green?
Now? Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
there you go.
Okay, to go from 24 to 22, it's going to have to go through the board. And as far as the pages that it would have to go, it would change. Obviously, our credit section in the book detailing the needs, what you need to accomplish credit-wise in order to graduate. We are on a time crunch to get these guidebooks approved. But Dr. Lee Bruckner, you agree with me that this is not many pages to correct, like the totality of that?
Correct, and the printed versions would be the ones that potentially we would have to adjust, but the online versions we could easily adjust.
Oh, okay. Sure, okay. Okay.
It's not insurmountable.
Sure.
Right. Correct.
So you're saying so if we were to change that, we need 2 readings of the business meetings to do that, it wouldn't meet the timeline of this going out for kids to be registering?
Correct.
Okay.
Madam President.
Yes, go ahead.
So due to the fact that this is an enormous task, I'm going to vote yes on this because it sounds like we can make the changes on the computer and make the changes with the tab that Val said and just cover it of the ones that have the paper copies. So this can be done. So I'm going to vote to yes, let's get the printed stuff going. And so what if there's a few addendums, a few tabs that we have to change? It's no big deal to do that, to get the bigger picture here done. And the computer stuff can be changed quite easily.
Val, I have a question. When does registration start then?
Actually, JJ's office is helping out with that this month, February.
Yes. The end of February began in March for Stevens High School, and then we're going to go in the, I don't have the exact dates in front of me, but mid-March for Central High School.
Okay. We're still going to maybe, well, the policy committee can still go through it, and we'll just try to get through it as fast as possible then. Any other questions or discussion on that?
Since I've been working on the grading policy for the board, and I sent those off, the new copies to Dr. Simon just today, I'm happy to take a swipe at the graduation requirements and just get an update on Dr. Simon's desk so she can share it with you at Policy Committee.
Thank you. Perfect. All right. So we have a motion and a second to approve it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All right, A passes. On to discussion B. I need a motion and a second to approve.
I make a motion.
Deb, Gabe? All right, this is now discussion back to school plan update. Dr. Tilburg, can you please take the podium? We have had a number of emails very upset with us, and yet it wasn't us that brought it. So would you please explain to the public the changes that were made and why?
Absolutely. So on December 27th, the CDC brought forward updated guidelines. And I don't know how familiar you all are with those. However, the guidelines, as I tried to state in the background or in the background information on this proposal, are very based on an individual's choices to vaccinate, their choice to vaccinate and then get a booster, their choice to quarantine, because if you read all the way through, it does at the end of these new guidelines say that, you know, to quarantine, but if it's not feasible, you don't. The guidelines include masking, which is very much a voluntary decision in our district. And so with all of those things together, it is really something that our nurses cannot police. We do not want to police this. We should not want to. No one wants to. I think that there's a misconception that our nurses are these COVID Nazis that we do not want to be. And it really has come down to, we just cannot track quarantine, who wants to be in close contact quarantine, who doesn't want to, it's already happened where we explain very neutrally and objectively what the guidelines are and then put it in the family's hands and say, now you make the decision you want to make. And they're like, okay, great. Yeah, we'll keep our kid home for 5 days and then we'll send them home, or we'll send them back with a mask for the 5 days following. And we're like, okay, cool. That's what the guidelines say. And then mom, who's sick with COVID, is at home with 4 rambunctious kids, and that plan lasts for about 48 hours, and then they send them back to school. And so then we have kids in the school building and secretaries saying, I thought they weren't supposed to be here, I thought they were quarantining, and we just, it's become more than it needs to be. And so it's something that we can't manage what families choose. We want kids to come to school that are healthy, and if those kids come to school healthy and the guidelines from the CDC say that if quarantine was not feasible and you send a healthy kid to school, our nurses do not want to send them home.
Yeah.
So that's where we are.
I really appreciate that. Unfortunately, we got quite a few emails, more than just rude. And I almost said, you know, we didn't write this, and I would have pointed them to the staff that did that, but I know that you've already been getting way too much. So, and I was hoping that they wouldn't be as rude to our staff as they were to us, assuming that we had done this and it was the CDC the whole time. So we're just updating, though, the back-to-school plan.
Yep.
With the new CDC guidelines.
Correct.
Because we have a plan. From the administration, yes. I don't know if you remember or have it in front of you, the resolution.
I brought it, yep.
Okay, it was brought to my attention that I misspelled something.
Oh, sure, and that would have been me. I'll own that.
And I guess my high school English teacher would be very disappointed in me.
Sure.
It's the first line, changes to the Ready, Set, Start 2021-22 back to school plan are a reflection of adaptations.
Oh,
I
okay.
think that meant adaptations, or I don't know if you want to change that word, but
yep, adaptations.
Yep, I would just say with that change, knowing that that would be a change and that we could still vote on this.
Okay.
So, thank you.
I'm
Any
not
other
too
questions?
proud to say I had a typo.
All right, go ahead, Clay.
I just want to say
thank you, Dr. Tilburg, too, and your staff for everything you've done over the last few years. I know this job hasn't been easy, but I think you guys have done an amazing job, so thank you.
We really are trying, and I would like to interject just to say that as our nursing staff, we understand that COVID can be serious, and it is serious for many families, and it has found itself into a lot of what we do every day. But the truth of the matter is we are really just doing the best we can with what we have. So I don't want this to reflect, if you're getting a lot of negative feedback that the nurses don't care, or that we as a board or as a district don't care. I simply don't. I know that that's not that superficial. It's just we can't continue to monitor something that the CDC even says, if it's feasible, do. If it's feasible, don't. I mean, it's just more than we can take on.
That's true.
We need to get back to helping kids with dental screenings and, things like that we can control.
Right. Thank you so much.
Yep.
All right, so we have a motion and a second, and I need all those in favor. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion passes. All right, motion and second on J, Black Hills Special Service Agreement, Family and Culture Engagement Services.
Make a motion.
Deb? Gabe? All right, discussion. Go ahead, you pulled it, so you go ahead and go first.
What I would like to see is I'd like to see us move this to a business meeting so that we can discuss it. It just seems like a lot of money, and I think that we should discuss it, because I don't know that any of us really understand why we're doing
What
this.
services they
Yeah.
are.
So I would like to.
Go ahead, Jackie, yeah.
Hopefully this is working. So for several years, Rapid City Area Schools has already contracted with Black Hills Special Services Center. As a former Title I principal for the last 5 years, that has assisted the schools in spending their 10% for family engagement. What that means is if you looked at the services to be rendered, what services they provide is a full-time position that really works directly with all 9 Title I schools and other schools that are promoting family engagement within their schools. Each of our schools has to do a minimum of 4 parent involvement sessions, along with STEM nights and other nights that require a lot of coordination of services. And so basically, what this contract does is assist the schools in setting up those events, as well as going out and coordinating services, bringing speakers into the school, bringing other, I want to say, especially with STEAM nights, other community members, partnerships. We utilize our volunteer services through this to bring people into those Title I schools. In addition, all Title I schools are required, as well as the district, to have a family and community engagement plan, which we just finished up this last year with them as well. They go out and assist every single one of those 9 schools in the development of that plan. Those types of services go above and beyond what a principal and a teacher can provide within a day's time, or honestly in a year's time. Being that person that just came from being in that position, it's a lot of coordination of services that happens well beyond the school day. We struggle right now even getting teachers to participate and assist us with a lot of the after-school events due to a variety of reasons that have happened over the last few years. So we've been really fortunate. I felt very fortunate as a person that sat in that chair for the last 5 years. I feel strongly that they have provided us outstanding services. They assist us in those coordination of events that go to the state level so that we can continue funding and be in compliance with our Title I programs.
So, yeah, it's for $81,000.
Can I ask?
Yes, go ahead, Jim.
Jackie, if I'm not mistaken, this is out of Title I money. This is not
This is
out
strictly-
of the general fund. This
Right,
is money
yes.
that comes out of Title I.
Yes. Yep, and it's the 10% set aside that has to occur for family and engagement activities and services. So this is directly from the grant.
You said all the way to the state events. So
Yep.
can you give me some examples
Sure.
of what they do?
Yep, so part of our consolidated plan, every school has to have a family engagement plan. Those have to be approved at the state level. So they assist us in those coordination of services that goes in every school's Title I plans that go to the state level for approval. We attach all of those when we submit our consolidated plan at the end of June. This year, unfortunately, it even took, we just had our consolidated plan approved due to a variety of reasons that we can discuss later, but certainly it is part of the compliance for us to continue funding.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Deb.
What are some of the activities? What do you guys, I mean, what do they do?
Sure, so every Title I school is required to do at minimum, 4 family events. So, for example, last year, a lot of those events were virtual, and this year, we have quite a few that are actually on site. They help us and coordinate all of our STEM nights, our STEAM nights. So you've probably heard that across the district that South Park is doing their STEAM night. So Black Hills Special Services has helped them coordinate that with community partnerships, whether it's the Journey Museum, the police department, the fire department. School of Mines does a ton of activities for schools during those events. They assist us in the coordination of those.
So they're being paid to assist you guys in coordinating getting people there for those nights?
Yes, and the development of our plans as well as professional development opportunities. They coordinate all those virtual events that we're doing right now with different partnerships across the state, for example, the Highway Patrol. They also, if you look at, I mean, I don't want to read to you, but the services to be rendered were attached. I believe you got that contract. Those are the things that we work with them directly, the principals, the teachers.
How many Title I schools do we have?
9.
Go ahead, Jim.
So I've been around Black Hills Special Services from the get-go. They do things that break your heart, that nobody wants to do, and they are phenomenal. They have found a way to get into the school districts. There are 11 school districts in the Black Hills Special Services West River. They're across the entire state. They deal with the special Title I special education. The technology from the STEM brings in technology so the kids get access to computers, kids get access to iPads, kids get access. And this position is a regular position that we do our part out of Title I, not out of your general fund. This comes out of Title I funds. That it's the strings that are attached to everything. So you have to spend this money. You have to spend it a certain way. Now, inside that, this young lady, didn't it used to be Morgan, isn't it?
It used to be Morgan, and it's Kelsey Judd. She was here a couple meetings ago with Jeannie McKenna doing the whole child.
Yep. And so they get out there, and she's doing all of this with all of the principals, all of the staff, trying to organize all of these after-school events for the family to be a part of the school so that parents get into the school and it's not a babysitting where the kids come in and the parents don't. They bring the parents in, so the parents have to be a part of this so that everybody gets some sort of breakout session to understand this so that they can work with it. When it comes to Black Hills Special Services, I can't tell you enough how much they do for our entire state. It is really, truly a phenomenal organization that is you know, they're educators themselves, and it's a contract that we have. And they have found their niche into helping with all of the kids who are in special needs that aren't even in school, that they have to do it, and they have their homes, and they have their, like Black Hills Works, they have all that. But they get into the schools at every angle, all the way up through high school, so that kids understand that. And again, this is out of title funds. This is not out of ours.
Is this with Ty then?
Ty is part of Black Hills Special Services.
Okay,
Yes.
do we
Or-
give them a certain amount per year as it is, just to be connected with Ty? I
For
believe we
Ty,
do,
I
yeah.
would not know that because that's not part of my program. I don't
think we
believe
do.
so. But again, Ty is a huge support to our district in terms of professional development, if we take advantage of it.
Yeah, if we hire them to do something.
Okay. Actually, the contract was not linked, so often we just get a memo that's on the link, so
Yeah.
on the other side, on the agenda
Yes.
email, then it's not linked to the, No, I just, it'd be nice for, the public be able to see, when they go to our site, they go into this agenda and they see just a memo. They don't get to see those types of services, so we're getting the questions, So we've got to end up pulling it up and asking those questions. It'd be nice if it was linked for the public. Any other questions?
No.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Yes.
All those opposed? No. Roll call, please.
Kate?
No.
Gabe? Jim?
Yes.
Clay?
Yes.
Deb?
No.
We have 2 yes, 2 no, and 1 abstain.
To pass, we would need 4 yeses. So, okay.
No, 3, because that'd be a majority.
No, actually, I believe that's wrong. We would have to have a majority of what the board members are, not of who's there. So,
Okay,
okay, moving on to K.
so it does not pass.
K, budget amendment. I need a first and second.
I make motion.
Deb, Gabe, and discussion.
I would just like Corey just to explain what's on that.
Sure.
Because it's kind of confusing.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. So some of the conversation that Jackie just had is a good segue into this conversation as well. And you'll hear me address some of the issues that she put forth in my financial report too. I'll give you my big picture take on this, and then Jackie, you feel free to fill in any detail that I left out. But these federal programs, so all of these amendments are to federal programs, Title I, Title VI. And what happens with these large federal programs is oftentimes at the end of the year, you have not spent your full allocation for numerous reasons. And ultimately, Jackie and her staff then have to work through the process of pulling that carryover forward, submitting a plan to the state inside of the consolidated application that says, here's how much we're going to carry over. This is what we're going to do with the carryover money. And as you'll hear in my report, I'll talk a little bit more about that. And so ultimately, when the state comes back and approves that and says, okay, your carryover is approved, then we have to go back through, amend those specific budgets for those amounts and those specific purposes that are laid out. So I'll let Jackie detail a little more on some of the more specific things, but ultimately what we're seeing is carryover unspent funds, from the previous year being pulled into this fiscal year and being put into the right categories so that we can go ahead and expend those funds. So Jackie, anything you would add to that as far as some of the specific costs that we're looking at?
Well, I can go detail by detail. I don't know how well or how far you want to get into detail, but Coy is exactly right. This was additional funds from carryover that we needed to reallocate into our budget. So I worked directly with the principals in doing that. I'm not sure if you're looking at the amendment, if you have the amendment in front of you there. 1273, Title I for general school-wide. Those are things such as it's directly related to student services. So schools were able to purchase supplies, equipment. Some of the funds went into after-school programming to pay additional pay to teachers. For example, any tutoring services that were occurring, any after-school programs teachers are paid out of that program. It also is services directly for teachers, covers salaries. 1276, the second one there is our homeless McKinney-Vento. That actually, if you notice 1276, and then if you look down to the other McKinney-Vento 2443, you'll notice that's just a wash. That actually covered the increase in salaries for the 21-22 school year. 21-28 under parent advisory, those were additional funds that are given to schools to support family engagement, the activities, trainings, supplies, additional pay for staff to participate in those evening activities. 2214 is professional development, and as you know, under title programs, we do allocate a portion for professional development for teachers, staff. This could be even professional development that we can allocate to parents. These are for on-site trainings, contracts for PD, conferences, trainings off-site, additional pay for staff on leadership meetings. We have 8 elementaries and 1 middle school. There is a variety of leadership teams. That you have your RTI team, you have your building leadership team. Many of the schools also have different teams that support their WIN groups, so forth. We're paying teachers additional pay after school. So that comes under that professional development 2214, as well as leadership coaching. That also comes under there for principals, assistant principals, deans, as well as some of your teacher leaders. Under 2327, that's our indirect costs from funds. And so those were the indirect funds that came out of our additional allocation. Those go directly to support the district in our Title I schools. And then 2440 is our Title I administration. That actually covered the salary increases through the negotiation, our bargaining groups to cover the salary increases.
Any other questions or discussion? No? All right, we have a first and second on the floor. All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, passes. And on to W. Let's see. I need a motion and a second.
I make a motion.
Gabe, Deb. All right. Discussion. This is a resolution for entering into a contract with Top School Jobs. I believe this goes across the country, not just South Dakota, whereas like Associated School Boards would do that just for South Dakota. For $4,100 for the year, and I did ask Dr. Simon earlier last week for a quantitative number of how many teachers we actually post or who, you know, and I did not get a number back other than it was just an excellent form of getting teachers. And if we're 51st in the state, and someone's coming here to South Dakota to teach, maybe because the husband's in military or whatnot, they're going to be looking at our website. And I just feel like, for me, this is a waste of money that we're not getting any numbers of teachers through this Top School Jobs organization. And I guess I just wanted to put that to your attention, board. I didn't get a number of how many teachers it actually shows us getting. Anybody else have any questions about it or discussion? Or thoughts?
Can I
Yes.
add a thought on that, if you don't mind? Oh, I'm sorry, Kristen.
Go ahead, Val.
Title IIA carryover was such this year that I increased the recruitment budget out of our federal funds for 2A, which can be professional development, it can be recruiting, or it can be class size reduction. And so the recruiting budget that's been provided them with those federal dollars would adequately cover this.
Oh, so this is not coming out of our general
Right, they
fund?
just had a
Or
bump this year because our carryover was pretty significant from last year with no travel really happening or anything like that related to
Sure.
professional development, so
Okay,
just for your awareness.
okay. Kristen, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Valerie. That's a really important part of our recruiting strategy, Title IIA. I would point out that the general fund puts only about $1,000 to HR for recruiting for the entire year for the entire school district. So that is the only amount allocated to our budget for that purpose, and that those Title IIA funds that come from Valerie's department are the lifeblood of our entire recruiting and marketing strategy. While I think that our salary situation is a very significant barrier to effective recruiting, particularly of the staff we most desperately want, we do see a lot of people who come for other reasons. And we do try to compete with them because while they may be coming to South Dakota, we want to be the first district on their radar. We want to be the one who, when they start looking, we come across. We have our recruiter who is going to, for example, recruit in Montana, going to recruit in Minnesota, going to recruit in Nebraska to try and make sure that we build our brand out a little bit more, because people do come to South Dakota for all sorts of reasons. I think we had some people who earlier this meeting indicated that they came for all sorts. And so to try and find different ways to reach those candidates, and my sincere hope is we'll have a lot more ways of being additionally attractive in the future, but we're trying to build a regional brand and put ourselves in front of those people, and we've seen that Top School Jobs is effective. If you'd like more information, I'd be happy to go see if there's anything we can pull. But I would also put out that that is one of the most effective tools that we've got for more senior level positions as well. So for example, we are going to be looking for 2 principals this year that we're aware of, and that we know that those positions often we have a regional pull, and to make sure that we're getting our district the very best candidates possible for those roles, I think Top School Jobs will be effective.
Yeah, if you could find out maybe how many we actually get. Are you saying that they actually take this and they go to, somebody from this organization goes to Montana and recruits?
So we're trying that this year. Our road warrior recruiter, Katie, is trying to find ways to stretch what money we've got to make sure that if we've been hitting all the local areas, we've been going to the colleges that are within our reach.
Okay.
But we do find that there are some key colleges where we have effective pipelines of students that just for some reason, bless their hearts, love South Dakota like we do, and that if we show up and build our brand at those universities and colleges, it's a long-term investment, but when you think about going to those events and getting 2 or 3 teachers, it's really worth maybe the $300, $400 that you spend to get there and build that brand over time.
Okay, go ahead, Gabe.
So, Kristen, this is kind of the first time you guys have tried to do this as far as going out to colleges to recruit and talking about the brand name and all that?
It's not the first time. We're trying to get a little bit more of a regional impact. Like I said, our budget has been a really limiting factor in the past, and so we've tried to really use inventive ways to have man or woman power overcome shortness of dollars. And so, this year we're trying to say we know it's going to be a big staffing year, and so rather than just hit the major recruiting events and colleges in South Dakota, our end of Wyoming, and like hitting Chadron, and occasionally getting to North Dakota, we want to try Minnesota and we want to try Montana, because when we talk to candidates who have come from out of state and come to South Dakota, those are a couple of the main places that we tend to get them from, Montana and Minnesota. And so if we can go, there's a major teacher career fair, just like we have in South Dakota that Montana has, and one that's held in Minnesota, Minneapolis. And so we want to do that. We're having our recruiter track leads to see if it's worthwhile and to see if it gets us there. But those things, like I said, are sort of hard to track because you see investment over time. But even if, like I said, we get a few teachers, it's very worthwhile, and then the connections you make with the career centers and the offices there, that when people say, oh, so-and-so wants to move back to South Dakota where their family is or where they were raised, if they know our recruiter, if they know our district and we come to mind, that's a very helpful thing.
How many unfilled teacher positions this year?
We don't know yet because we do not have a full picture of how many people are resigning or retiring. I would certainly be happy to run a report for you off of our careers.
Like
page
as of
and
right
send
now?
that. Let me
Isn't
look
it
real
like
quick.
37?
If there are any other questions to fill the awkward
We're
pause
waiting
while
on
I
you.
run the report, I'm open.
I want you to have the awkward pause.
All right, I can do awkward. I've done it before.
What? What?
Yes, go ahead.
So am I understanding this resolution correctly that it's just $4,100 for a job search program?
Yes, I think that's it.
Okay.
For the
Thank you.
year.
For the
You're
year.
welcome.
Okay, thank you.
Good question, young man. That come from a cobbler, just so you know.
Yes, it did come from a cobbler.
Once a cobbler, always a cobbler. Except for I have kids that are Raiders, so I'm purple. Well, there you go.
I guess all I'm getting to, Kristen, is we know that we've got quite a few. So if you've guys got a plan and a budget put together going forward for something like this, I think we'd like to see it. That's all.
Certainly.
All right, any other discussion? Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right, motion passes. On to number 10, first reading of policies and procedures.
Madam President?
Yes, Jim.
I make a motion that we move this to the next meeting due to the fact that there's been a lot of back discussion on this and more information is coming in, and I don't have it all at this time. So I would ask the board if we could just move it to the next business meeting.
Perfect. I do have some information, more discussion to bring to all of us. Anybody second that?
I'll second.
Deb? All right. All those in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All right. Reports of the superintendent, and it looks like Coy Sassy is standing in for Dr. Simon. By the way, she is in here with the superintendent convention and meeting with some legislators. Quarter 2 budget review.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So tonight, board, we're going to take a look at fiscal year 22 mid-year performance of the district. So just to touch very quickly on why the mid-year point is important and really what the goal of the review is. Well, in theory, December marks the mid-year point of the fiscal year. So theoretically, it's an easy marker to look at financial performance because theoretically, all of your indicators would be at 50%. Now, of course, theoretically doesn't always play out in reality, and we'll talk more about that momentarily. But what's the goal? So the goal really is to take a look at the big picture revenue and expenditure information to see if the numbers are on track with our budget estimates. We also want to identify trends or specific areas or issues that need to be addressed. And we start to formulate an idea of how the budget is shaping up as we move into the next fiscal year. As always, some disclaimers to make. So the first being that these numbers are based on, in financial speak, what we would call common size financial statements. So in other words, we're reflecting each of these items as an overall percentage of the revenue or expenditure budget. And that can get a little tricky, as you're going to see here in a moment. The other thing that can get very tricky is when you have the inclusion of new or unusual funds into the district budget. And so our situation in this case, where we have dropped a significant amount of ESSER funds into our budget, can make those numbers look different as you move through the year. And then lastly, just the idea of a marker of 50% through the fiscal year as you look at those common size numbers can also be tricky. So, and then the last thing to mention is we typically typically do, tonight we'll really be focusing on the general fund and capital outlay fund for the majority of our conversation. So we'll start with some big picture information, and then we'll start to zoom in more on capital outlay and the general fund. So taking a look first of all at revenue for all funds and the second quarter collection. So total revenue collected in all funds as of the end of December was $78 million. Now that's about 32% of our overall revenue budget. So again, if we're looking for that 50% mark, then obviously we are off the pace. But we're going to talk more about why that is here very shortly. First, let's take a look at the revenue situation graphically. So what we see here are the 3 months of the second quarter, October, November, December. The total budgeted revenue here in blue, the actual revenue collected year to date here in orange, and the previous year's revenue collected year to date in the gray for comparison purposes. So again, as you can see, we are behind in revenue collections in comparison to the previous fiscal year, but we still have a very similar trend happening in overall revenue collection. So if we trended this gray portion and we trended this orange portion, we would see a very, very similar trend. So that tells us, yes, we're behind on collections, but overall the trend is similar and nothing is on fire at this point. Switching over to the expenditure side, total expenditures in all funds as of the end of December was $93.7 million. This is about 36.8% of the overall expenditure budget. Again, we're off the pace for that 50% mark, and we'll examine that more here in a moment. Oops. Again, here's a graphical look similar to the revenue look at total expenditures. And again, what we can see here is that compared to last fiscal year, we are behind our trend. But again, a very similar trend line here that we're looking at as we look at the 2 years compared to each other. So again, oftentimes in the financial world, we're looking for trends, and when trends look similar, that's typically a good thing. Okay, this is a look at overall expenditures versus overall revenue by month in the second quarter. So we have our revenue figures here in blue and expenditures here in orange. And really the trend that we see is in the first half of the year and then into this second quarter portion, our expenditures, especially in the first part of the quarter, are really outpacing our revenue. And that's primarily due to the very erratic nature of the district's major revenue sources. For example, property tax, which makes up 40+% of the district's revenue, really comes in two major payments throughout the year. So depending on what time of year you're looking at, it can really skew that revenue picture. But then we see that comparison begins to level out here towards the midpoint of the year. And then into the second half of the year, we'll see revenues continue to catch up to expenditures, hopefully outpace expenditures. So again, this is a very common and typical trend for the district at this point of the year. Okay, let's move into a little deeper look at the general fund. So this is a graphical look at general fund during the second quarter with our total budget here in green, collected revenue here in blue, and expenditures here in yellow. And so you'll see this trend looks very similar to the overall trend of the district that we just talked about, with expenditures outpacing revenue here in the early part of the year, and then revenue starting to make up ground as we move into that midpoint of the year. Okay, so this is where we're going to dig in a bit, and we'll start to explain some of these anomalies that we're seeing. So let's take a deeper look here at the general fund year-to-date breakdown, and we'll start here on the revenue side. So we're looking at a revenue breakdown by type here. Overall, the district is at about 40% of total collections year-to-date in the general fund. So again, from a marker perspective, we would be looking at a 50% marker. So as of right now, we're behind in total collections. we would typically see a breakdown of about 40 to 45% local revenue, which is this blue portion, 40 to 45% state revenue, which is this gray portion, and then about 10% federal revenue, which is this sliver of yellow here. The breakdown that we're actually seeing at this point in the year is about 52% local, 46% state, and essentially, again, a real sliver here of federal revenue, which is at about 3.8% year to date. So we can see clearly where we're lagging is on the federal side. Now, the challenge here, and this dips into our conversation that we just had a few moments ago, is that these federal programs are all included in what is called the Consolidated Application. And as Jackie and I spoke about, really what the Consolidated Application is the application that houses all of the federal programs for the district, or the majority of federal programs for the district. Essentially what happens is Jackie and her staff put together the spending plan for the district of how we're going to spend these funds. That then gets submitted to the state. The state does their review, ultimately approves it. And even though those expenditures are included in our budget at the beginning of the fiscal year, we can't draw them down, even though they've been expended, and be reimbursed for them until after the state has approved that application. It's very typical, I would say, in my experience, that that approval of that application typically runs past the beginning of the fiscal year. Very typical that it's approved in late October, even into the November timeframe. Now this year, as you heard Jackie address earlier, we saw that even later. It didn't end up getting approved until December, mid-December timeframe, correct, Jackie? Several reasons behind that. Primarily was the state having to deal with the huge amount of ESSER funds, reviewing ESSER applications, and trying to get those applications approved so that districts could start working on those projects that were included in those applications. Also, there was a really high degree of carryover, as we just saw, because of some of the unspent funds that districts were having due to some of the COVID restrictions and regulations that were going on. For example, we saw high amounts of unspent funds in travel and in professional development, as you saw some of those types of areas. Essentially, what we have is really just a bunch of money hung up. As of December, we had about $10 million worth of cost reimbursement hung up under the various federal programs. So again, this is really what's pulling that general fund revenue away from that 50% mark. Now the good news is that, as you heard Jackie discuss, that application is now approved, and those funds are drawn. So as we move into January and February and we start reviewing the financials, that revenue picture is going to look different. So again, at first glance, this can really look ugly based upon these common size factors that we're looking at. But as we take a deeper look, we really see our general fund revenues are on track, especially in local revenue and state revenue, which is the two major areas we want to make sure we're on track. So all is well. Moving over to the expenditure side, really not a very little to note here. Overall, we're at about 47% year to date on the expenditure side, so we're still trending behind where we should be. This also includes that mid-year stipend that the Board of Education approved to all employees, so those figures are included in the year-to-date figures. And really this expense breakdown is about where we would expect to see it, with about 85% salary and benefits, and then the remainder of the expenditures broke up between these other categories. So not a lot to note on the expenditure side. Okay, moving into capital outlay. This is the graphical breakdown similar to what we looked at on the general fund side, again with budget in orange, total revenue collected in yellow, and then expenditures in green. Very similar trend. Revenue far behind expenditures here at the beginning of the quarter, and then starting to catch up as we move into mid-year point. Again, nothing to be overly concerned about here. Behind in collection, we're going to talk more about that in a moment, but trend looks very similar. Okay, so as we dig a little deeper into capital outlay, looking again at the revenue side first, the first thing that's going to jump out at you is that this breakdown is really just a whole pie at this point, and it's all local funds. Now, that in and of itself is not really a departure from the norm. If you recall, the majority, about 95 to 97% of capital outlay revenue is property tax or local effort. So not having any slices in this pie at this point in time is actually normal. Where we start to depart from normal is that the capital outlay revenue collected year to date is about 16%. So again, if we're looking for a 50% marker, we are quite a ways off. But again, if we dig a little deeper, we can find the source. So capital outlay local revenue sources are on track at actually trending a little bit ahead at about 51% through December. And again, where we're seeing the discrepancy is on the federal revenue side. And this is actually very atypical because normally we would have very little federal revenue coming into the capital outlay fund. However, after the approval of the district's ESSER 2 and 3 plans, we scheduled about $48 million of revenue and expenses into the capital outlay fund for the South Middle School project and the air purification project. And because neither of these projects had begun yet, in terms of construction anyway, none of that revenue has been drawn down. So really what happened is we added this very large pot of revenue and we haven't drawn any of it down. So from a percentage standpoint, it looks very bad. But again, as we start to zoom in, we find the cause, we understand the cause, and we see that everything is on track. Again, especially looking at, in this fund in particular, that local effort, and that's where we want to make sure we're on track. So as those projects begin to move forward and as we start to expend money and then draw revenue back in, that picture will clear itself up and look totally different.
Real quick, Coy.
Yes, ma'am, please.
When people see local effort, where exactly does that local effort come from? Because I know many people think that our property tax, you know, whatever it is, goes straight into our bank right here. But we've also heard, nope, it goes to the general fund in the state legislature, and then they decide per allocation of children. What is the local effort actually?
So, you know, essentially local effort is defined as property tax revenue. Now, of course, there's a process that happens as that tax is collected, moves over to the state, and then the state essentially sends that revenue back through the county and then ultimately down to the school district. So, yeah, you're correct.
Not necessarily does every penny from all of our taxes here get back to here.
No.
Okay,
no,
that's my point, because that's what I think is missed quite often.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, that in and of itself could be a really long conversation of the journey that funding takes or those collections take. But yeah, ultimately it goes through the process and then filters its way back to the district. So it is not a direct line from taxpayer immediately into district coffers.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
So again, on the expense side, very similar to general fund, not a lot to note. Overall, year-to-date expenditures are at about 20%. Again, that's due to the fact that we have $48 million worth of projects that we have not begun, and as we begin those, that trend will catch up very quickly. And again, expense breakdown, very normal at this point in the year. Just very quickly, I want to touch on the other funds of the district. So special education revenue is at about 39%. That fund is having the same issues as a general fund, which is a significant portion of revenue is under the federal banner. Similar to the consolidated application, those have been hung up. I believe we have approximately $3 to $4 million worth of expenditures that will be reimbursed for, and that'll catch that trend up. And then on the expenditure side, running at about 43%. Student nutrition on the revenue side, about 48%. And expenditure side, about 44%. So they're trending well under in terms of expenditures. And then on the health insurance side, about 53% of revenue and about 54% of expenditures. So trending just slightly over both on the revenue and expenditure side. Lastly, just very quickly want to touch on cash balances. Not a lot to note here. The major point to make is that, as you can see, the majority of the district's cash is being carried here in capital outlay. I do have to point out, and I pointed this out several times, but that is not all true capital outlay cash. We are carrying about $14 million that we will use for capital outlay certificate refunding. And that transaction will happen in the second half of this year. I believe it's scheduled for May. So once those funds go out that we are holding, we'll see really what the true balance of the capital outlay cash is. So in reality, it's more like 23 million as opposed to the 37 million that you see listed there. But outside of that, not a lot to note in terms of cash balances. Very quickly, just a couple other brief updates. So FY23 budget process continues, meeting with Board of Education Budget Committee, SLT, Executive Leadership, Financial Advisory Council. And then ultimately, at this point in the year, keeping a close eye on the outcome of the legislative session, particularly to any changes to the state aid formula, and teacher accountability. Obviously, those two things have a major impact on the district financially. So always tuned into what's happening at that level and eager to see what the outcome of those things are. So with that, Madam President, I will turn it back and be happy to do my best to answer any questions the board may have.
Any questions from the board? Nope. Well, you must have done an amazing job.
I'll take it. Thank you, board.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, on to 12, other. Does any board member have any other? I would only just share that the February 15th meeting will be at the City Council chambers. There was at first the thought that there might be a conflict because of the holiday, but we will be here. And that's all I had. Any? Okay. We are now going to go into executive session for SDCL 1-25-2.1 and SDCL 1-25-2.3, and then we'll do our adjournment, but there will be no decisions made after that. So thank you, everybody who has been coming to our meetings and stays the whole time. I really appreciate that, getting a feel for what we're doing here. I really do appreciate it, because in years past, people will go through the public comment and just leave. And so I thank you very much for everybody who came and stayed.
Madam President, I need a motion and second, please.
Okay. Jim and Clay.
Thank
All
you.
those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Thank you.
Probably the only Valentine I'll get.
It's the only one I've ever got.